Viscount Tonypandy was an ex-speaker of the House of Commons in London. And I just fell instantly in love with this old man. Now, Viscount Tonypandy wasn't Jewish. In fact, he was a Methodist lay preacher, a non-ordained minister in the Methodist Church. Very passionate Christian, very passionate supporter and lover of the Jewish people, admirer of the Jewish people. I think he was in his mid-70s. He was dying of cancer, and yet when his beloved Jewish people asked him to come and support a fundraising event for a Jewish charity, he had no hesitation in getting on a cold and drafty British train from Euston Station in London and trundling 4 hours northwest up to Manchester. And I sat beside this old fellow and I just totally fell in love with him straight away. He was to speak first. And so he stood there in front of this audience of 1,000 Jews and told the story of the first Jew he ever met. I can't remember exactly when he was born. I'm thinking round about 1912, 1910, 1912. But after the First World War, this little boy, Viscount Tonypandy, his real name was Jordy Thomas, known as Jordy Thomas. And when he was a little boy, 6, 7, there was in the village that he came from, a Welsh mining town, in a village called Tonypandy. When you get elevated to becoming a lord, to getting a peerage, you get to choose your title. And he chose his title from the little town he came from. In this little town, Tonypandy, there was one Jew, a Jew called Isaacs, a religious Jew. And he managed to get hold of this little boy, Jordy Thomas, 7 or 8 years of age, and made him a proposition. If he were to agree to come into his home every Friday night and every Saturday morning, which of course is the Jewish Sabbath, to light the Jews' coal fire, something which a Jew can't do when the Sabbath has begun, and to keep the coals burning so that they had heat over the Jewish Sabbath, he would earn for this the princely sum of tuppence, 2 pennies. We still have in the UK a 2-penny coin, a tuppenny piece. Don't know if you ever saw Mary Poppins feed the birds tuppence a bag. There's a big copper coin called a tuppenny piece. Now, this was a fortune to a little boy. We're talking, just after the First World War, tuppence, wow. And so he agreed to the proposition for his new job and came home holding the tuppence proudly in his hand to show to his mother his first wage. And so he stood at his mother's side. She was washing dishes at the sink, and she sees out the corner of her eyes a little boy holding up the tuppence. And she said, "Where did you get that, boy?" in her Welsh accent. And he said, "The Jew, Mr. Isaacs, he gave it to me, Mum. After going to his house on a Friday night and on a Saturday morning to light his coal fire. If I do that every week, I get a tuppence." She said, "Take it back, boy," in her stern Welsh accent. And Viscount Tonypandy, telling the story, said he had tears welling up in his eyes. "But Mum, he said I could have it." "Take it back, boy." "But it's mine." "Take it back." "But why?" "You don't take money from a man to help him serve his God." And so Viscount Tonypandy said that he, as a little boy, Jordy Thomas, with tears in his eyes, went back to the Jew called Isaacs to return the tuppence. And the Jew called Isaacs would hear nothing of this and marched the little boy back to the mother. And there started an argument between the religious Christian and the religious Jew over the fate of this tuppence. They came to a compromise. Jordy Thomas would light the Jews' coal fire for that first Shabbos for tuppence. But after that, he would do it for free. And Viscount Tonypandy turned round to this Jewish audience and said, "And you Jews, you've forgotten who you are. When we in this country were living in caves, you'd already built your golden temple in Jerusalem. When we in this country were wearing bear skins, you'd already written the book that would be the moral and ethical inspiration of mankind. Never be ashamed of being Jewish. You've forgotten who you are." And in the last 2,000 years, we have forgotten who we are. And today, we're being told again and again, all the the names, the dirty Jew, all the horrible nicknames are now becoming free currency once more. And when people say these things to you over and over again, it starts to impact on you. That's how you start to see yourself. It's important in these days, when people are trying to tell us that we're people who should not be proud of who and what they are, of our contribution. Not people who think we're better than anybody else, but people who have the right to believe we're as good as anybody else. Then it's important for us to reconnect, to re-examine, to examine perhaps for the first time who and what we are, what our history is, what our contribution to the world has been. Check out the number of Nobel Prize winners who are Jews. The wonderful, incredible discoveries that were brought to the world by Jews. Look at the philanthropy of Jews, and you will find there's so much to be proud of, no matter what the same voices who've tried to keep us in ghettos, physical walls, psychological walls, not understanding we should be proud of being Jewish. There's just so much to be proud of.